What's up, FYF Sportsman? It's Lamont. We are back with another NBA season recap video. And as you guys can see, today we got the Chicago Bulls. One of the brighter young teams of the NBA. It just seems like over the last couple of years, whether it's due to injuries, whether it's due to youth, whether it's a combination of just lack of personnel at certain positions, this Bulls team has just never seemed to find their footing. They've shown flashes, but they've never been able to put anything consistent together for an entire season. Last year, after the big trade, bringing Vucevic to the roster, I thought this team could really make a run at getting into the playoffs, but yet once again, we saw this team struggle late and falter. Even though when you look up and down this roster, you see a lot of talent. And today we got to do this recap. We got to look into what can the Chicago Bulls do to improve their roster going into next year. What players will stick around. And then also lastly, I need y'all thoughts. What are y'all thoughts on the Chicago Bulls? Let's go ahead and get to the Chicago Bulls NBA season recap. The Chicago Bulls had plenty of hope and excitement coming into this season. They made changes to their front office by adding a new GM and Marc Eversley. Billy Donovan was then hired as the Bulls head coach. The Bulls also made a huge trade at the deadline, acquiring Nikola Vucevic. Unfortunately, there were some health issues and injuries to key players that caused them to miss the playoffs. What hurt most was when all-star guard Zach LaVine missed 11 straight games due to health and safety protocols and a right ankle sprain. As a result, they have now missed the postseason for the fourth consecutive season. Despite missing the playoffs, the season was still good for them. The fans saw some excitement in the new group that they haven't seen in a while. The players played hard for Coach Billy Donovan, and that was something that Chicago hasn't seen in years past. Now the Chicago Bulls will be centered on improving their roster this offseason. The great news is that Chicago could clear up some cap space this summer, which should make things interesting. But first, they must address their own free agents. Nearly half of the roster is set to come upon player options or hit free agency in some form, whether they are restricted or unrestricted. The good news is that their most four important players will be locked up for next season. That includes Zach LaVine, Nikola Vucevic, Pat Williams, and Kobe White. Outside of their own free agents, the Bulls need to surround their all-star duo with a better supporting cast. Their top priority should be bringing in a true point guard. The point guard position has been a question for the team ever since Derrick Rose went down in the 2012 NBA playoffs. Will they go after Lonzo Ball again? That remains to be seen. But we'll see how the team moves forward a couple of months from now. All right, when we look at the Chicago Bulls off-season outlook, got to start with the free agents, upcoming free agents for this team. We got Lauri Markkanen, who's going to be a restricted free agent. We got Denzel Valentine, who re-signed this year. We got Cristiano Felicio, Daniel Tice, and Garrett Temple. Those are five guys. And I think Lauri Markkanen is a guy who just does not seem to fit or mesh well with this roster, especially now that they brought in Nikola Vucevic. I thought that the combination of the two players would be beautiful, especially if you can go to Vucevic in the post and then you can go to your bench, you can go to Lauri Markkanen and he can play from the outside in. I thought it would work better, maybe more cohesively, but he just after his first season in NBA, he hasn't looked the same. Doesn't look like he fits well with this Bull playing style. Maybe it's best that he moves on. Can the Bulls get something in return if they lose the big man in a possible sign and trade? We got Valentine, who was solid off the bench this year, gave them some much needed minutes. He actually had to play some point guard for them as well, but he does not look to be the answer at the point guard position. We got Felicio. This is a player who I still question how he made the NBA. How he's still on this roster is just completely blows my mind. The Bulls would be very, very wise to just allow him to walk and not come back to this team. Don't even try or worry about getting anything in return for him. We got Daniel Tice. Daniel Tice is a solid big man. It seems like Daniel Tice is just that type of big who can almost fit on every NBA team. Whether he's starting or whether he's coming off the bench, he's like that glue center that you look for. He's not gonna wow you offensively, but he makes timely buckets and he can make easy layups. And defensively, he's not a pushover. He can defend. He can move his feet. He can guard the perimeter to a certain level, at least to a competent level. He's just not getting destroyed on a night in and night out basis. And then we have Garrett Temple. Garrett Temple brought that veteran presence that this Bulls team very so much needed. And I think the Bulls are going to look to bring him back another season because he really was like a calming force for this team. He had some big time moments in some big time games. Especially when Zach LaVine was out. So I think re-signing Garrett Temple would not be a bad move, although it's not a necessity. Their focus should be at the point guard position. Tools to improve the roster. Outside of the salary cap, they do have a taxpayer mid-level exception for about $5 million. And that's just simply assuming that Chicago re-signs a combination of Tice, Temple, Marc, and Markman. And then they would have to clean house to get the full $9.5 million exception. So they have a little flexibility there. But remember what I said earlier. They got those 4 key guys under contract. That's what's really eating up most of their salary. Key moves to make for this team. First thing you have to do is you have to sign and trade Lauri Markkanen. Him and Vucevic cannot play together. We saw that very quickly in the second half of the season for the Chicago Bulls. You have to sign and trade Lauri Markkanen. You cannot let him walk away for free. And so because he's restricted free agent, the Bulls have the power in this situation. They can force the sign and trade because they can simply match any offer and keep him until the trade deadline and maybe move him at a later time. So it will be wise for Lauri Markkanen to seek out a viable sign and trade. And where can Markkanen potentially land to help another team? I've been hearing a lot of different things. I've actually been hearing the Lakers, strangely enough. The Lakers, the Warriors, there's a lot of teams interested in their services, but will they have the cap flexibility to make it happen? And then now we have to decide, okay, the Bulls are going to have to make some decisions. Decide whether or not to fully guarantee Tomas Satoransky's and Thaddeus Young's $10 million and $14 million deals. Both of those players have team options on their contract. So do the Bulls want to allow those guys to walk? We know how much they like Thaddeus Young as opposed to Tomas Satoransky. He was benched earlier this year, but they love Thaddeus Young. Do they choose to let both of these guys walk, create that cap space, and go after a bigger name free agent? Maybe they can make a bigger push for Alonzo Ball, a guy that they've just been really looking at over the last couple of years to potentially be their starting point guard. Because we know Kobe White, he's just shown himself to be a solid 2. He's just not a true point guard in this league, and he's not bringing that defensive presence that you would like to see from this Bulls team on a night in and night out basis. And we have it right there. We got the Chicago Bulls NBA season recap. Like I said before, you're talking about a team with a lot of talent. Patrick Williams surprised me. I thought when the Bulls picked him, I think at the 4 spot last year, I basically said they wasted a pick. I didn't think that he would be ready to play NBA basketball. You're talking about a guy who came out of Florida State. He didn't even start a game at Florida State. How ready could he be? Well, he proved me wrong. He started almost every single game for the Bulls. Shot extremely well from the 3-point line and just showed a lot of versatility and promise. All right, you got Zach LaVine, you got Kobe White, you got Vucevic. All right, you got a good core. So the Bulls did right by keeping the core, keep that core group together. Obviously, Wendell Carter Jr., he's moved on now in that Vucevic deal. So they bolstered that aspect of this. But can they get older, which means more veterans on this team, so they can make those playoff runs? And can they load up at the point guard position? We look at free agents this year. I look at a guy like Cameron Payne, who's going to be on the open market. Especially if they can't get a guy like Lonzo. But if you need a holdover until you find a point guard of the future, Cameron Payne wouldn't be bad. There are a number of point guards out there that could do the job. Again, even when you're talking point guards, again, you have to continuously bring up the name Mike Conley. He's just going to be one of the best on the open market this year. Will the Bulls go after that? I don't think he particularly suits the Bulls' playing style, but maybe they just go for the gusto and bring guys in that they normally wouldn't go after and just hope that it fits. But you guys, let me know what you think about the Chicago Bulls. If you are a Chicago Bulls fan, what can they do to bolster their roster? They made a number of trades already this year, getting Vucevic on the roster, getting Wendell Carter up out of there. They got to figure out what to do with Lauri Markkanen. He's so talented, but just never fit. Zach LaVine, we hear things about Zach LaVine. Is he getting traded? Is he staying? I think he's going to be stuck with the Bulls unless another team comes with a massive deal. But we never know until the season starts, man. So make sure you guys hit me up in the comments. Let me know what you think about the Chicago Bulls. But it's FYF Sports, man. It's been another great podcast episode. We'll be back with more NBA recaps later when we go live. We're going to be going live tonight. Make sure when we go live, you hit the link, come into the panel, man. A lot of you guys have questions. I see the comments. I see you guys in the live chat asking. Just come into the panel, ask the question. Let's have that conversation. It's just basketball. But it's FYF Sports, man. It's been another great podcast episode. We'll be back with more sports and news later. But until then, it's FYF Sports, and we out.